Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to talk about our dinghy, but more to the point, what you should be carrying in your dinghy to make your life safe and comfortable out here sailing. If you look through the West Marine and the Defender and the Fisheries Supply catalogs, you're going to find loads of things to buy for your dinghy. A lot of them are really great, but I mean, if you put all that in your dinghy wouldn't float, right? So I'm going to go through what we find is the most useful. I've been doing this for, 20 some years, actively out cruising. We'll tell you what I carry, what I don't carry, why I carry what I carry, and why it's important. Start out with, dinghy's got a motor. We love our motor, and we just recently switched to this fuel injected motor, and it's really been quite problem free. But dinghy motors are gonna cause problems. When they cause problems, you need to move the boat, and for that you need oars. I know the inflatable boats don't row well, but if you can move at all, if you can move at a half knot reliably into the waves, that is so much better than being at the mercy of the waves. It might mean there's a reef and you're coming onto that reef, and with a lot of effort you can miss the reef and go onto the beach. So have oars. Oars are important. If you have a hard dinghy and one that can handle it, have serious oars. These guys are 7.5 feet long. They're solid wood. You can put some effort into them, and rowing is actually a pleasure. We very often pop the motor up and get a little exercise or sneak up on some wildlife quietly. Right along the lines of this motor is, to keep it going, you need to carry some basic tools. It's surprising how often the problem is almost nothing. So I carry one of these multi-screwdrivers. I don't carry this one, and honestly, whatever screwdriver you end up using is going to have a short life because it's kind of a rusty environment. So put all of this in something sealed, oil it up, spray it with WD-40 at the least. Those wax compounds like Bow Shield are great. But with this, you can open the drain to the carburetor float if you have a carburetor and let some water that might have accumulated out. It's a good first thing to try. If you flooded the engine badly and you just can't wait, changing out the spark plugs is usually a trick to move you on. Almost everything in modern small outboards uses a 10mm wrench. Mine came with this little kit, which is a spark plug wrench, of course, and that's a 10mm wrench. It's awkward, but you can do a lot with that. And then finally, and this probably only applies to people with very small outboards, but some outboards still use shear pins, and the tools you need to be able to change a shear pin can make all the difference in the world. If you don't know what a shear pin is, it's a pin that kind of keeps the propeller rotating with the shaft. And it's called a shear pin because if you hit something, it's designed to break so nothing else breaks. And you just have to pop the old one out and put a new one in. So if you're a shear pin engine, carry shear pins. It all comes down to what's going to fail most likely. On carbureted outboards, it's bad fuel, water in the fuel. If this was your car, particularly if it was 40 years ago, the most likely thing to fail would have been the tires. That's why all cars have a spare tire and a jack. It's kind of like the 90% tools, what you need. If you needed to change the valves, you're not going to do that out here. But just enough to do that most common deal. Next up is what we carry in this little pocket right here. There's a lot here. We have a little light, and I don't know why, but this thing always works. It looks like I abuse the hell out of it, just storing it here in salt water. It's by Olight. I don't even know what they call it, but they sent it to us along with some other lights, like for free, and it's probably one of the better ones we've had. It uses like a regular AAA battery, and anytime I've ever checked it, it has been there and reliable. It's not gonna like get you into a bay and see where you're going, but it can solve a problem with the engine, and it can be seen if you needed to catch somebody's attention. We carry this because, well, Every sailor needs a knife, so have a knife on board. They're amazingly handy, and it's something you don't want to do without. And I use this knife because it has a whistle. This is what's really important. Some kind of a sound-making device. Yelling is incredibly exhausting, and people are used to people yelling. They're not going to hear it, but everybody's ears just perked up in this bay. I'm not going to do it again. That is a unique sound, and when you hear it, you try to figure out what's going on. If I do it 3 times in a row, you know, the distress thing, I'll probably have somebody jumping in their dinghy just trying to find us. If I do it repeatedly and I really annoy people, they really will. So having a knife and a whistle sound-making device of some kind, very important. Communication can be more in this day and age than just a whistle. We don't usually carry this. We carry this if the mission demands. If I'm going someplace far out or I'm having to organize something, of course I'm on the radio and we pre-decide where to go. Handheld VHF radios are great. And this one is both VHF and UHF. We're hams, so this lets us do other things, and that's what we use. Next thing is personal flotation. And oh man, I bet you I'm going to get comments on this. Just being practical, you know, for my life out here, looking around, seeing other people, nobody wears life jackets. I will take life jackets if I'm going to, like if a yacht was coming in here and had an engine failure and I had to be part of the people that go out to like tow them in, and I'm going out in the waves and they probably aren't like nice waves that day or they wouldn't be in distress. Yeah, everything, tether, you know, the whole deal. But in the tropics, it's hot. Nobody seems to wear life jackets. The more you put in the boat, especially life jackets wise, the more you're going to trip over. So the Swedish military has a little thing they say you can safety yourself to death. I think an unused life jacket is useless. And the other thing about life jackets, if you put it in the dinghy, the sun will get them and they won't last a couple years. We do carry this because it is flotation and we can throw it, which is really important because if I can't get to where someone struggling is, I can get this close to them. But this also is just a comfort thing. I've more than a few times thrown that down into the dinghy in a place where I can rest my head and chat with somebody up on a yacht and have a long conversation. It's like a pillow, and that's really a great thing to have. You might notice this doesn't look like one you've probably seen before. Similar, but just like every one, the material that comes with it is going to fail in the sun pretty fast. So after this failed, we did a really quick job of putting together a new cover, put the strap back on it, and we used a good acetate, kind of the same material Sunbrella is. It's not Sunbrella, but that's kind of thing. And anyway, we find this really useful. So we always have this in the dinghy. I'm just inspecting this and I haven't in a while. Emily had a really great idea. She had some labels made up with SV Temptress and our contact information. She sewed it into there. Well, that didn't hold up so well. You should have your boat's name on it. On all the flotation bits like this, it's really great if it said SV Temptress. 2 reasons. One, I'm more likely to lose this or get blown out of the dinghy than other things because it's light. Somebody will return it to me, you know, that's nice. Make life easier for them. But also, you know, that whole boat goes down, the Coast Guard's out looking for you, whatever, somebody finds a bit of something and they say, this is from the boat that went down. Now I have an idea that the wind and the current are coming this way. They went down in that direction. So it's really a useful beacon to tell people when you have a distress. Another idea, in fact, Emily just mentioned it to me while she's filming. We have these big beanbag chairs in the cockpit, and we think the same about those. You know, they're labeled Temptress, and because they're very likely to float away if something happens. They also have reflective tape on them, so they can be seen from a distance with anybody with a light. That's not a bad idea for this, because you could, you know, do the I can find it easier thing, but also you could just hold it up, you know, and be seen if there's a light in your area. And hadn't thought of it before, but thanks, Emily, good idea. Now I'd like to talk about how people have actually been hurt out here in their dinghy that I remember, from my experience, and the devices that would have made their life better, that would have helped them out. Okay, number one is runaway dinghies. Your dinghy's in gear. Sometimes it's from starting it in gear if your dinghy can do that. And for whatever reason, you get out of the boat, you fall out of the boat, and the dinghy takes off. I've more than a couple times had to wrangle these things where you try to come up alongside them and they're going fast and then, slow them down and such. What you don't want is for the dinghy to come around and hit you, because it's a saw down there. A guy in the bay just last year went down on a motor and just cut the hell out of himself. He's still not walking. It's really, really, really dangerous, and it's really fast. So use a tether and actually connect the tether to yourself, so that if you leave this vicinity, the motor's going to go off. Now, it's actually pretty darn handy, because my procedure for coming up to the yacht now, if I'm alone, is I come up in gear, I'm coming up, and when I get to where I need to be, I just either pop it into neutral or not, but just go forward and tie up the dinghy. My going forward turns off the motor, so I don't have to slow down and deal with that. So they're really kind of handy anyway. So use a tether. It's going to keep the dinghy from being an unguided missile and wreak havoc. Yeah, that havoc could be, cutting you up because they go in circles, but that havoc could also be ramming into other boats, just causing mischief and hurting itself, or running away out into the ocean. All of those reasons. These are more valuable than people give them credit for. Another person we know that came near death, she did survive. It was all about lighting. She didn't have a light on her boat. The boat that hit her was a bigger boat, but they didn't have light on their boat either, I understand. So she just motored along in the dark, as we do, and bang, her life changed. She's in the water. She was with someone that didn't get hurt as bad, and they held her face out of the water. She probably would have drowned if she was alone. Having a light is a huge thing. Now, we have this light. It's one of those little patio light type deals with a solar panel. Emily found it, and lots of people use these things because they're not really for outboards. They're white all the way around. But this one's quite tremendous. I've been very happy with it, except it's not the right colors. Though this boat, we actually have a switch that when it's working, and it's not right now, we can turn on tricolor lights on the dinghy. I realize with an inflatable or something, that's nearly impossible. The other problem with this is the battery just isn't enough. So it charges during the day and it runs during the evening, but it doesn't make it through the whole night. Now, for us traveling around, that's not a problem, but this guy's got another job, in my opinion. The dinghy spends its life dangling behind the yacht in the anchorage here. And the dinghy being lit lets people know what to go around. You don't want them running into your dinghy. They don't want to run into your dinghy. And they definitely don't want to pass between your dinghy and the yacht and go over the line. You want them pretty close to each other when you're in an anchorage, but you still want the dinghy lit. We're lit till about 2 in the morning, up till now. Final thing is an anchor. You need an anchor on your dinghy. You need the anchor for safety, because if something goes wrong and you're drifting out to sea, you want to catch the bottom, have some time for someone to find you, have some time to deal with the problem. But also, you want to go diving on some beautiful reef. You need an anchor to hold the dinghy so you can do that. We just got some packages from Mantus. Mantus makes really good gear. We use the Mantus anchor as the main yacht anchor. Decided amongst all the others, that's the one I like the best. We've been beyond happy with it. I've been sailing for a lot of years, and dragging isn't even a thing anymore. Part of that is the Mantus anchor, and part of it is we ordered a big one. But I've looked through their catalog, and all of their stuff just looks well thought out and top notch. So they offered to give me some stuff, and I want to show you what they've sent me here. I've got this light, and you get this little pedestal that I'll glue on there in place of this, double-sided tape, everything you need. And then you've got this light that can lock in and remove. This light is 3 colors. There's a green section, a red section, and a white section. It's solar powered. Also, you can plug a USB through this little waterproof deal and charge up the battery directly if it's not sunny enough for you or you're in a hurry. I'd like to fire it up right now, but I probably can't because, yes, I decided I wanted to know how many hours this would run for. So I turned it on. 39 hours it took before it turned off. The battery life of this is pretty fantastic. Now that was only with the white light on, but that's what I would have on, just the white when it's unattended on the back of the boat. We would click it into the mode where it has all 3 colors when we're traveling at night. It has every different setting, so you could use it just as a port light, just as a starboard light, any different which way. Anyway, I think their stuff is pretty darn cool, and I think it'll live right there very nicely. One test I haven't done is, will the solar panel keep up with just the one light, or how many hours will it run? But from what I've seen, it looks like it's going to run a good long time. And it has a little insignia on the side that says 2 nautical miles, U.S. Coast Guard, so we know it's bright. If you're a stickler for boat rules, and you know, they have their place, they definitely do, you're gonna say that doesn't meet the requirements. I do have white behind, I have red, I have green. I don't have another white above, which would be the steaming light. And if I'm motoring, I legally have to have the steaming light. Well, yep, technically I'm illegal in the United States, and I would probably get a ticket from the local cops because local water cops love giving tickets in the United States. But what I'm arguing is, if it's this or nothing, you are so beyond the average sailor out here who has maybe a flashlight. So I think this is a great piece of kit all by itself. It's enough for me. Remember, I'm the guy that's not carrying life jackets. Don't listen to me. One other little advantage of this kind of setup is it's behind you. You're generally looking this way for things that you could run into because you're traveling at pretty good velocity. If the light's behind you, it's not affecting your night vision. If I were to mount this on the bow, I wouldn't be able to see a darn thing in the dark. You can have tricolor lights in the front of the boat if you have them over the front of the boat. Well, you can only have the red and green on the front of the boat, but it's perfectly okay to have them all back here. Yeah, my body will shade like 1 degree, but everything's moving. You're not going a straight line. There's waves. You'll be seen. And honestly, the illumination from these is quite bright, and people could actually see the boat itself if they were blocked by my body. I think the stern is the right place for these. Now let's talk about the anchor. I had a little Danforth knockoff, a little teeny cute thing. I bought it in Puerto Rico like 15 years ago. Usually the knockoffs don't work too well, but that one worked really well. Used it until the galvanized gave up and it was just like actually rusting away. It was actually getting smaller. I took it that far. Now I took it, I put it in the dumpster in town, and like on my way to the dumpster, I had a local guy following me and gave it to him because it still has life in it, you know? But these are so damn cute. I've seen them on other boats, and this was my main reason for making the call. This is their little Mantus anchor, and it can be stowed together in a bag on your dinghy, if that's the kind of dinghy you have, and use up like no room at all. But in no time at all, I'll do this real time because it's just so neat. You just kind of spring that together. There's a little pull ring here. You drop that in and click, and now you've got an anchor. That's the whole deal. I'm gonna put a little cover over. Comes with this little cover. I haven't taken it out yet. Let me pop it on. Ah, better than I thought. Okay, and that's to protect yourself because it's a very sharp point. Then you take your floating line that we talked about in the earlier video and hook it on. You might want to mouse that. I usually put a little wire tie kind of a thing. I don't like to use wire on the dinghy anchor because it's sharp and we don't want to cut people. But that's it. Pop that off, throw it in the ocean, and you've got yourself a nice little anchor. Also, I kind of like this one on the beach because like all the pointy bits can go right down in and there's not so much to trip on as some of the others, like a grapple anchor is. Anyway, I find this, it's the 2.5 pounder. I think it's right for a small boat like a dinghy. And I don't know, I guess I like new toys. Okay, that about does it for what I would carry in the dinghy. This would be the things that live in the dinghy, except probably this. Now, what do you take on the mission? Now, it depends where you are. I've been down in Panama where the sun is just blistering down. And the rule is, do not leave the boat. Don't cross the gunnel getting into the dinghy until you check. Do you have your hat? Do you have your water? So those are things you should have. If you're going someplace where you need shoes, I'm not today, you need shoes. And a good pair of shoes are important. If you're in a more of a city place and you're headed to a store, this would be the #1 thing that sends me back to the yacht for what I forget. Make sure you have your wallet on you. Because, strangely, the real world uses money. Lots of other things you could be carrying, of course. If your backpack that you take off the boat has bug spray, hand sanitizer, you know the list for that. That's kind of getting off the topic of the dinghy. That's more how to survive on land after you've landed. So that's my list. What's on your list? What have I forgotten? What would you not leave the boat without or feel very bad if you found yourself without when you needed it? Put it down below in the comments, please. And, well, we'll see you later. Bye from Clark on Temptress.